I don't think that Bitcoin is going to have diminishing returns. Let me explain. Let's start with what diminishing returns is. Diminishing returns is proportionately smaller profits or benefits derived from something as more money or energy is invested in it. I don't think this is going to happen with Bitcoin. People think that Bitcoin's returns are going to decrease over time because in the past we haven't had increased returns. But I think that the past cycles were actually completely different than future cycles. Bitcoin is a different asset after the ETFs were approved. Before the ETFs, we had retail buying Bitcoin. We had people buying Bitcoin from exchanges. They were gambling. A lot of them didn't really understand what Bitcoin was. Wall Street is going to make Bitcoin so widely available and it's going to make everybody buy Bitcoin because they're going to extract value from the people who buy Bitcoin through them. They're going to give institutions, they're going to give companies a reason to accept Bitcoin. The early adopters, I think we're still in the early adopters phase. The early adopters of Bitcoin are going to buy Bitcoin. After all of the Bitcoin is done in terms of US dollars, other people are going to adopt Bitcoin and they're going to have to accept Bitcoin in exchange for their goods and services. We have to actually get to that point before we see diminishing returns. The best is yet to come. I think that the next few years of returns are going to be absolutely insane because if you take a look at Bitcoin treasuries, you can see who holds Bitcoin. You can see the companies, the publicly traded companies that hold Bitcoin, the privately traded companies that hold Bitcoin. Over time, this number is going insane. It's going up exponentially. Companies are buying as much Bitcoin as they can. If we scroll through the companies who own Bitcoin, you can see recently a lot of these companies started buying a lot of Bitcoin because they figured out that they can use the bond market to buy more Bitcoin. This cycle is different because companies never used the equity markets and the bond market to buy more Bitcoin. They never borrowed US dollars. They never brought their future consumption to the present to buy Bitcoin today. And that's what we're seeing here. These companies are accumulating as much as they can. Hut 8, you can see here. Galaxy Digital Holdings, they're accumulating. Riot, they're buying. 21 Capital is buying. Marathon is buying. MicroStrategy is buying. All of these companies are buying as much as they can. And eventually, the people who are willing to sell Bitcoin at every price are going to run out. A lot of Bitcoin is held by individuals, and it's over time going to move to businesses. It's going to move to funds and ETFs. It's going to move to governments. The fact that there's only 6% of the total supply left to be mined, 94% of it has been mined already and it's in circulation. So 94% of it is either owned by someone or it's lost. So out of that 94%, how much are these businesses and these ETFs and these governments going to want to buy? I think a lot of people are still looking at Bitcoin as just another part of the financial system. They're looking at it as part of the fiat currency financial system when Bitcoin is separate. A lot of the selling right now is coming from people who held Bitcoin for a very long time. So some people held Bitcoin for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, people who bought Bitcoin for dollars, people who bought Bitcoin for pennies. They're the ones selling their Bitcoin right now. Something like 250,000 Bitcoin moved from individuals to businesses in the first 4 months of 2025. That was a report from River. So over time, the companies that are holding Bitcoin are accelerating their purchases. You can actually see their numbers here. You can see how quickly they're buying. But the supply of Bitcoin is decreasing. The number of people who are willing to sell Bitcoin for these prices are decreasing. I think that because these companies basically have a blank check, they can keep running Bitcoin's price up forever. I don't think we're going to see diminishing returns because there's going to be points where Bitcoin runs out. These companies, like I said, have a blank check. They can buy as much as they want to. There's no limit to how many dollars can exist. Countries will start buying Bitcoin. They'll start printing money. They'll start borrowing money to buy Bitcoin. What's the limit? What's the limit here? There's no limit. The price of Bitcoin can go up forever because the price is determined at the margin. The only people who can determine the price of Bitcoin are buyers and sellers. The buyers are constantly increasing, but the only way to increase the number of sellers in the market is to increase the price. So if the price goes to, let's say, $1 million, there's going to be a lot more sellers. But at that point, because Bitcoin's price will have gone up so much higher, retail investors will trust it more, institutions will trust it more. So we'll have even more buyers. We'll have way more people buying Bitcoin at $1 million than we have today. Then at $10 million, way more people buying Bitcoin than we have today. Then the same thing at $100 million. And these ETFs are the funnel to get people to start buying Bitcoin, because the ETFs connect you with your 401k, they connect you with your Roth IRA. You can buy Bitcoin in tax advantaged accounts because of the ETFs. Before the ETFs, you couldn't really do that. You couldn't really take self custody on an exchange like a 401k type of account through Coinbase. You couldn't do that before. Now you can. Now you can have Bitcoin on a 401k or an RRSP or a TFSA, and this just opens the floodgates. The previous cycles were dictated by retail buying and selling. I think we're going to have financial institutions recommending a 1 to 2% allocation to Bitcoin to everybody. Everybody is going to have Bitcoin in their 401k. Everybody is going to have Bitcoin in their RRSP, their TFSA. At least a small portion of all of their accounts will be in Bitcoin. So where is the price going? The number of people who are willing to sell their Bitcoin for dollars are going to run out. There's no floor for dollars. The value of the dollar can decrease 99.9%, then it can decrease another 99.9%, then it can decrease another 99.9%. It can keep going forever. As long as some people trust the US dollar to have value, other people can continue to extract value from the US dollar. So they can keep borrowing more money and buying Bitcoin. So over time, the amount of money going into Bitcoin is going to increase. The amount of money that the US government is going to print is going to increase, and more of that money is going to find its way into Bitcoin. This is a chart from Jesse Myers on Twitter. You can see Bitcoin is only 0.2% of global wealth, $2 trillion. Total global value of assets is $1,000 trillion, or $1 quadrillion. 2 out of 1,000, 0.2%. Bitcoin can take all of the value out of bonds. It can take all of the value out of money, because Bitcoin is money. It can take a lot of the value out of real estate. Real estate values are going to plummet in terms of Bitcoin because people are going to stop using real estate as a store of value. It can take a lot of the value from equities, because a lot of people are just buying index funds blindly. They're buying stocks blindly. They just think that they're going to go up. Their employer is incentivizing them to buy those assets. Art, cars, and collectibles may be a little bit more difficult to capture just because they have their own value. But I think gold is going to lose a significant amount of its value as well. Maybe all of these won't decrease, but what we're going to see is the entire pot, this 1,000 trillion, is going to increase. And Bitcoin is going to be a bigger and bigger percentage of it. So let's say, for example, over the next 20 years, this number 10x's. Bitcoin could be 50% of the total $10 quadrillion worth of global assets. So what that means is, if this is 50% and everything else is 50%, that means that Bitcoin is half of the investing market. If this goes to 100 quadrillion, Bitcoin could be 90% and everything else could be 10%. So everything else is still increasing, but Bitcoin is increasing way, way, way faster. And because Bitcoin can accept as much value as anybody can put in, anybody in the world can access it, the growth can happen forever. So diminishing returns, I don't think that's going to happen. Because the US dollar can keep losing value forever, at some point, the number of people who are willing to sell their Bitcoin for US dollars is going to decrease and decrease and decrease until there's no more Bitcoin available for US dollars. All of these institutions here, they have unlimited US dollars, but there isn't unlimited Bitcoin. These companies here can keep printing more and more dollars, and they can keep dumping them into the market and buying Bitcoin. They can keep taking Bitcoin out of the market. MicroStrategy bought something like 10,000 Bitcoin last week. Eventually, those 10,000 Bitcoin buys are not going to be possible. That's $1 billion that they dumped into the market and they took Bitcoin out of it. So over time, the people who are willing to sell these Bitcoin for these prices are going to run out, and we're going to see that there's no more Bitcoin left. And we're not going to see diminishing returns because of this, because the US dollar can keep losing 50% per year, 75% per year, 80% per year. So Bitcoin's return could actually continue to increase over time while the US dollar's value continues to decrease forever. Let me know your thoughts on this. I think that diminishing returns is not going to happen. If anything, we're going to have consistent returns over the next few years, next few decades, until Bitcoin takes over as the world reserve asset. If you have any questions about this or any other topic, you can book a meeting with me in the link in the description below. So keep stacking Bitcoin. Don't sell your Bitcoin regardless of price. Sell your Bitcoin because you want to improve your lifestyle. That's perfectly fine. But don't just sell because you want to take profits.